Okay, guys, good morning.
Good morning.
And let's turn to Genesis chapter 35. We'll look at verse 5 through 8. This is the, hey Gene, good morning. This is the second and last week we'll be looking at this. We'll be moving on further in the text next week. But this whole idea of renaming this place, and I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts regarding why this man Jacob would have visited this place, had such a significant experience at that place, Bethel, as a younger man. He goes out and he lives life. Here he is at Genesis 28:11, and he names this place Bethel, which is house of God. Then he goes out and he lives life, and we've been looking at that for a few weeks now. And then he returns now in Genesis chapter 35 to this very significant place, and he renames it. And I just thought that was a really great question to ask. Why would he rename it? And so this delta here, this question mark, is what has happened in this man's life to cause him to rename that. And it reminds me of the quote, famous quote by T.S. Eliot, "We shall not cease from our exploration. The end of all our exploring shall be to return to the place where we started and to know that place for the first time." And I think all of us can identify, relate to that quote, having lived a good chunk of our life now, thinking back and where that journey has taken us. And so I also introduced last week the story of Rich Mullins, which we showed part one. We're going to show the ending, the part two this week. And what I'm correlating, or attempting to correlate, is Jacob's journey, and then another man, Rich Mullins, who was in the faith, Christian ministry, but his life was not clean, like your life and my life. It's not clean and perfect and antiseptic, but it had struggle. And we look primarily his struggle with his relationship with his father, and how that struggle really informed how he lived his life. But we're gonna look at the rest of the story here this morning. But it's this whole idea of journey and what life does to us. That wonderful quote that Dave shared with us here just a few minutes ago on. It's not about conquering and overcoming and arriving. It's about living under and in faith with God, and it's not always clean, but we are going somewhere, and that's a wonderful thing. That's what a journey is all about. But it's not about dreaming of that destination. It's about what we learn and can ultimately impart while we are on that journey and on that way. So we looked at Jacob's journey, I wrote down some thoughts here. These are very bullet points. Jacob on the left hand, on your left hand side, is clever. He's manipulative in his early years. You know, we've seen a change in this man. He's forced to leave home primarily because of his own doing, and this whole thing of the stolen blessing and the ramifications of what happened. He goes on and he builds a successful life, not without disappointment, heartache, and relational difficulty. We've seen that. It's not a sanitized life of Jacob. Jacob does not have one. He again is forced to leave under painful circumstances. And then there's a typo there. It should be, he is forced to face his painful past with his relationship with his father-in-law. No, actually, this is the facing. He's forced to leave here, and then he's forced to face, and this is, of course, the wrestling, this whole thing. He thought his brother was going to kill him. And now, as they've entered the land, into this land of promise, where God said he was going to take him, he watches in the recesses, in the background, while his sons live out a destructive life. And I think some of us can somewhat relate to that, where some of our family members have not, in our opinion, have not making really good choices, and to painfully watch that is a hard thing. We tend to blame ourselves, and I think that's natural, but it is that's a whole nother story to go through. It's not about our choices. So anyway, there's that, Jacob's journey. Rich's journey. Then we looked at Rich's journey, and it's not as long. We haven't finished it out here. He's a gifted musician, active in Christian ministry, but desperately seeking his father's approval. After his father's death, the gaping hole in his heart is causing an internal and external meltdown. You know, we left that last video last week. This guy's in a world of hurt, and it's all about, you know, how do you reconcile? How do you, especially if his father's passed, how could he ever go back and heal this wound? Well, we're going to look at that this morning. So it's this whole idea of journey, and that brings us back to where we started is the question, why the renaming? Why this renaming after all of this stuff that's happened to Jacob? And we're going to see Rich Mullins in the video clip in just a few minutes. He's in a sense going to a place. He's going to go to a place in this clip. And in a sense, there's a figurative or symbolic renaming of that whole. His is not a place, it's a relationship. We're going to see him revisit his father's relationship. That's his place that he needs to go to. And I would venture to say there's probably has been or will be a place each of us needs to revisit in the course of our lives. But, you know, why? You know, why? And so, curious, before I share what my thoughts are, and not by any means do I have the definitive right answer here, but what are some of your thoughts? Why did he rename this place after so many years? You know, House of God is a good name, but he names it now God of the House of God. What do you think?
I think through his life he learned that God is God over all things. It's, you know, we compartmentalize so bad.
Carl, good, yeah.
I do. It's just like, no, God's God of me falling down today. He's God of my success. He's God of my relationships. He's God of my love for my children. He's God of, you name it. He's God of what I eat or don't eat.
That's so good. Charlie, yes.
He raised the level of God upwards. It's you know, overall.
I see it exactly the same. You two guys are talking about exactly the same thing. It's something bigger that has happened. God hasn't changed, but his perception of who God has changed, and it's gotten larger, not smaller. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. Other thoughts?
It's part of a, I'm thinking it might be, the reason he did it is part of a recommitment process. He came back to Bethel, and this is a part of a recommitment in his life of putting God more in the center.
Yeah. You know, imagine yourself at this place. I have visited Bethel. It's not very memorable to me. It was to Jacob. Not much there, in my opinion. But think back of a place. Think back to a place where you, I don't know if you've ever gone back to where you were born or to some significant place. And you experience that place and you remember. And the thoughts and the feelings you can smell, you can remember, you can hear, you can see and feel in a profound way those things. And I think what Bob is saying, it brought him, whether he brought these ideas to Bethel or Bethel did that to him, he recommitted. He recommitted. It brought a intimacy and a newness and a freshness and I think a gratefulness to his life and his journey. So thus, no, not Bethel. Well, yes, Bethel, but the God of Bethel. Yeah, Jim.
It's kind of like you're going back to where you first met God.
Yeah.
You know, face-to-face personal relationship.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that will come, you know, that live here and that live somewhere else, and they'll say, yeah, when we were back home, we went to the church where I was saved. And, you know, and they are aware God is with them always.
Yeah.
But it was a significant thing of going back. And when I go down to Denver, the little church my mom went to, where I accepted Christ, I'll drive by there and think, yeah, that's, you know, it's maybe not just that's where I accepted Christ, but that's where my mother went to church. And, you know, it's a family thing. You just, the regathering that you have, that you long for.
Yeah. These are, what a gift that God has given us, the ability to remember.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I took a stab at it, and it's really right in sync with what you guys are already saying. But these were my thoughts, that the memory of what occurred at this place has now been reinterpreted as a part of a much larger story, Charlie. I mean, what Carl and Charlie were saying. What happened then, back in 28:11? Remember the dream of Jacob's ladder, angels ascending and descending. So what happened at that time in the past is now seen in context to a relationship with God, who has been intimately engaged in the entire journey. Now, it's a big mouthful to say that stuff happened back then that now is brought to memory years later and now interpreted in a larger context, in a way that God has been there. Not dissimilar to your experience as you think back. Throughout Jacob's life, God has been present. It's now on this occasion and at this place, Bethel, he understands this reality in a new and profound way. Same thing, it's exactly Carl and Charlie and Bob, exactly what you guys are saying, and Jim. And what a gift that is God hasn't changed, but his perception, it's like he's got new eyes. And I think we'd all can grasp that idea of seeing something new and fresh in a different way. That is a marvelous gift from God Almighty. And then I put a comparison here, 28:16. At that time, after this is going back now, I think he got a glimpse. He got a glimpse in 28:16 of this event here in 35. Because he states in 28:16, surely God is in this place and I didn't know it. That was his initiation into what life was to be about for him. He got a taste. For a moment, the blinds opened and he could see. And he came to a realization about, gee, there's more going on here at this moment than I realized was going on. Thus, his entire life. And now he comes back in 35:8, and I think at a much more informed, profound basis, or enlightenment. His eyes are opened in a way that the whole movie is played, and he can see God is there. God was there. Oh, God was there. God has been with me. Yes, Charlie.
That's the journey we were talking about.
That's it. Yeah. That's the journey. Yeah. And we are nothing but grateful men for what God has done in your journey, in my journey. It's not about perfection, is it, Carl?
No.
It's not, you said it. It's not, he knows our failures, he knows our successes, and he's with us regardless.
Yeah.
It's not about getting it right. It's about knowing the one and believing in the one and trusting the one who has it right.
Praise God. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, Rich's Journey, Part 2. We're going to look at this. I think it's about a 10-minute clip, and I don't think we'll take much comment after that. If we have a few minutes, we might just share some thoughts. But remember the story. We left Rich off as a guy melting down because of this very painful memories of his father and that interaction that you saw played out, orchestrated last week. And now we're going to pick up, he's at the bottom of the tank, the phone rings, and he picks it up, and that's the beginning of something new. On the other end of the line is a man called Brennan Manning. And Brennan Manning was the author of the Ragamuffin Gospel, of which some of you have probably read. He's also a very colorful Christian character. But in real life, Brennan Manning had a tremendous impact on Rich Mullins, assisting him to come back to the Father, God the Father. And so this scene, and then we're going to play a portion of the last scene of the movie, not the entire end. I've kind of clipped this thing together and took editorial license here, but it's the story. And you're going to see the place that Rich Mullins goes to bring about healing in a very needed, painful heart. So that's what we're going to look at. And I'm going to shut the video off so I'm not censored by